Greetings and welcome, everybody, to this week's episode of the UC Weekly News. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Boxing Day, I guess. I don't know what the greeting for Boxing Day is. If there's any other holiday that you're celebrating, happy holidays. Enjoy the holiday with us. Thank you for joining us. This is our special show. We're all obviously not here. We're celebrating the holiday with our families, but a couple of days ago we got together and wanted to talk about what the year's been like and what our predictions might be. And this is a group of my closest friends and good analysts. And I'm choking to death while I go through this. I'm going to let each one of them introduce themselves and have a moment. We'll get a little free-for-all in. So thank you for joining us. Tim, you're the first square up on the screen. Tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Thank you, David. Yeah. Hi, my name's Tim Banting. Happy holidays. I'm the practice leader at Omdia for Digital Workplace. So we cover workplace transformation, unified communications and collaboration, and customer engagement.
What was your biggest story from this year? Think about the last 12 months and what was the biggest thing to come out of it?
I think the biggest one for me, David, was the consolidation of the UC&C market even more. With in October this year, Unify Atos were being acquired by Mitel. I think the premise-based PBX is proving to be still very persistent, and it's still quite a lucrative install base with maintenance contracts to fulfill. And Mitel has that as being 75 million seats. So it's very difficult to displace. It's proving to be quite a lucrative market still in terms of maintenance contracts.
Yes, the death of the phone, the death of the standard communication has been greatly exaggerated over the years. All right, so put on your crystal balls and your thinking caps and everything else. What's your big prediction for next year?
Big prediction for next year is faced with the pressure to improve revenue and struggling to displace that persistent long tail of PBX. I think UCaaS vendors will increase their prices and create new premium licenses.
Everybody agree with that? Anybody agree with that?
Any way possible to make money, yes. Who's not going to try to do that?
Okay, we've got those. They're recorded. They're written down. Let's keep going. Amelia, you're next on my screen in the Hollywood Squares here. What was your big story? First, introduce yourself, and then tell everybody what your big story was for the last year.
Yeah, hi. So my name's Amelia Vrabel. I'm a business development manager at AVI SPL. And obviously, we're a large global audiovisual system integrator, but I work as part of our UCC team. So we're really, facilitating engagements across the whole stack, everything from conference rooms to, phone, contact center, and all the collaboration tools. So, we're here to really maintain expertise on some of our key platforms and understand how we can better, enable our customers to be more successful. So, gosh, yeah, lots of stories, honestly. And I know, obviously artificial intelligence has been a huge focus, but really in terms of, how it's implemented into all the different software platforms, and not only from, just how can we make the actual meetings more equitable, but also how do we take better notes in the meeting with the meeting summaries and the chapters. And I think we're just sort of starting to use this and starting to understand how this can be implemented as we move forward.
Okay, definitely a big story. It's AI is taking over the world. If you listen to people, I think it's a bit more hype than reality. But I hear you. What about for next year? What do you think is going to be the big deal?
Well, I think I've talked to you a lot about just this whole return to office, return to work. Obviously we've talked about this a lot. I hope we stop using the word return in 2024 and we actually start to look forward, because gosh, what are we returning to? 2019 is 5 years ago if we look into next year, right? So I think we have a lot of opportunity to say, let's take stock of where we are with the tools we have, the roles we need to fill, and move forward and stop saying return to office or return to work or return to anything, because we have a lot of opportunity to look ahead. And so I hope we do that in 2024. And it'll be really interesting to see where we are at this time next year as well. So, yeah.
Sounds like a good point. Anybody disagree or agree or want to give some kudos there?
I love it, because if we're returning to work, what have we been doing for the last 4 years? I mean, we've just been sitting on the couch, as you would call it in the States, feet up. Now we're actually going to, oh, damn it, we've got to do some work. Cool. I was enjoying
lying
the
in
last
bed,
4 years.
eating bonbons, watching movies on TV. Yeah, the whole nine yards.
Exactly how we all roll. So yes, well done, Amelia. I love that. We're just going to continue work. We'll just do it in a different place or in a different way.
I think
Yeah,
what
I
we will
agree.
do, sorry, I just very quickly, I think what we will do is start looking at different ways to measure people and look at the output rather than the place that they work, which will be quite interesting because I think too many companies look at whether or not your backside's on a seat in the office and assume that you're working. So I'm hoping that people will be judged by their output finally.
But that's going to take management understanding how to do that. And not all managers feel comfortable doing that. If they can't see their employees, then they feel like they're just sitting on the couch eating bonbons.
It takes a higher level of management. And I certainly agree with you, Amelia, when you say that looking out from 2024, 2019 is 5 years ago. I think we can put a moratorium on the whole new normal, next normal, framing everything we do in the context of 2019. Time has passed us by if we continue to think about how we're going to frame today in the context of 5 years ago. Let's talk about today.
Yeah, I don't use the expression new normal anymore. I call it normal.
And the reality now is you can't just go back and flip a switch to where things were 3-4 years ago, because people are now working in different locations. The companies are hiring out of market. So this idea that, well, we're just going to bring people back to the office leaves a lot of people out who might not necessarily be living close to an office anymore, or creates all sorts of challenges for people who have to deal with childcare issues and so on.
Yeah, you guys.
And all the people who moved, but there were so many people who moved to, Zoom towns.
Yeah.
And now what, you have to move back?
You guys have heard me use the term
temporary, right? Like normal is always temporary because it's always, at the moment we're in. And yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of things that, can change, but if you don't embrace change, then that's the first problem. But
you've heard me use the term equilibrium. We're going to hit at some point toward the end of next year equilibrium. Nobody is going back to anything that they haven't already gone back to. We're going to finally, as you point out, start moving forward. So I think that's great predictions and great insight. And Neil, you're next up on the chopping block. Say hi to everybody. Tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Hello, everybody. My name is Neil Fleuster. I'm Director of Technical Marketing for Crestron. And I was going to say, my greatest thing of this year, David, is getting the band back together with you, to be honest. I mean, those years of us sitting in the same room every Monday, and then we couldn't talk. We were incommunicado, and now we're back being friends again. So there you go.
I am not the big story of 2020.
I'll give you that.
I'm no longer working where I was working, and that there may be an end to that story coming up that I'll tell everybody when.
Okay.
But for now, it's just station keeping, and I'm happy to stay engaged. So
okay, well, I'll do another one then, shall I? So I was gonna say, when Amelia said AI, I was like, oh, someone's gonna get AI in there, but clearly, obviously, Microsoft are making a big bet with Copilot. I was over at Ignite. We did the joint hookup there. And again, Microsoft's putting a huge, point on that. I think from the UC and AV space, one of the things that we're seeing growing, and again, we were joking about this on social, is that going back to kind of multi-camera, the Americans would say, I'm sure, but multi-camera, so multiple cameras around the room. But who remembers Centro 2.0? Obviously Cisco announced this year. So I think again, multi-cameras and some interesting camera technology to try and get that, again, another horrible term, meeting equity. Can we put that one in the sin bin, as well as new normal and hybrid meetings and all that? Hate meeting equity. We're just having a normal meeting, but we can see each other. So yeah, love that one.
Well, we can't possibly all have meeting equity right now when David Maldow comes on with his OBS.
No, he's very unequitable.
Just blows us out of the water with what he's doing. We'll deal with that. So that's your prediction for next year is multi-camera.
More
what, David? When Neil was talking about Copilot, I thought his prediction was going to be everyone's going to understand Microsoft Copilot licensing, which I think is a bit of a stretch for next year. I think it will take a few more years yet.
As a Microsoft partner, I couldn't
value, comment. Right? To what extent, Tim, that Copilot's going to actually be worth the investment. Charging up front for a product at a premium when you're yet to actually understand what its potential capability is, you're banking that they're going to deliver product that's going to continue to provide value over the time that you're subscribing. It's the first time that I'm paying for a movie I don't even know what it's about. You're already lined up for what? I'm going to be smarter, more capable, more agile. I hope I am, but it's a big trust.
I'm very thankful to artificial intelligence this year for knocking the term metaverse off of the social media page. That was one thing that it has accomplished that I'm very pleased about. And I've said this
Unless you're wearing
before.
sunglasses.
Well, no, yeah, but I've said this before that people are seeing and talking about AI and unified communications and otherwise as this nirvana, as this superhero, as this I'm going to get on it and fly around the world. And I really envision it, like I said last week, as a really big staircase. And if we're lucky and smart and cautious, we'll maybe take 4 steps next year. It's a long road, and we're going to be on a short piece of it. So, that's where me being on record, and we'll see. The Microsoft Copilot is really exciting, and it's amazing what it can do. But is it their new UI, or is it just a hot thing to talk about? I don't know. The year will tell, Neil. We'll see where we go with all of that. Blair, you're next up on my screen. Give everybody a quick introduction, and then tell us your big story of this year.
Okay, thanks. So I'm Blair Pleasant. I'm president and principal analyst of Confusion, which is basically me being an independent analyst. And I'm also part of the BC Strategies team. I cover unified communications, contact center, CX, and pretty much whatever falls under the business communications umbrella. So for me, the big news of the year was the platform. Every vendor talked about having a platform. Zoom, Microsoft, Cisco, RingCentral, all the players talked about, I'm not just a UC vendor, I'm a platform player. So it makes it easier to bring in, third-party apps and also bring in together all of the vendors' own apps. And they all added on to their platforms. They added webinar, event capabilities, Zoom added docs and calendar and email. They keep adding more O's to the Zoom logo. And of course, contact center is a big part of that. All the vendors adding on contact center capabilities, well, all but one. And that leads into my prediction, which is, I think, we've been saying this every year, but I think 2024 is going to be the year that Microsoft does do more with contact center. And I don't think it's going to be on the team side. I think it's going to be more on the dynamic side and, also bringing in Azure, however you pronounce it. But I think we are going to be hearing more noise from Microsoft on the contact center side or CCaaS side, and all the other UC vendors are also going to be pushing more and more their contact center stories because it's just more exciting and more interesting than just plain old, UC.
It's interesting. You guys follow this probably more closely than I do. Didn't Microsoft just make an announcement that they're working with a partner that they've cleared the VoIP hurdle in India? So they're now going to be providing services over VoIP in India, which is it's a very difficult thing to do over the years. I remember, that could really lead toward the ability of having offshore contact centers there as well as other places.
Yeah, India's been the hot story. RingCentral made an announcement, and a couple others made an announcement this year. So I think we're going to see a lot more happening in India. But yeah, that's definitely the home of contact centers and the offshoring. I called Microsoft the other day for an issue, and I had to talk to 4 different people because I kept getting disconnected, and they were all clearly in India.
Plus, Blair, I think you saw a lot in this year with the integration of ability to interpret sentiment, so you could measure the performance of your staff and how effective they were with tools that weren't available, and your logic chain now can be a block of go here. And so the ability to set up and respond, the alignment of the stars, if you will, has made, you're absolutely right, is a very good time for that product space.
I think because Blair was talking
contact center's
there,
been hot, but it's, go ahead, Tim.
I was just going to say, I think what Blair's highlighted there was what I was trying to get out before my throat sort of croaked. My throat, not me, not yet. Anyway, but in order to increase the average price per user, the ARPU, a number of vendors are going into market adjacencies. A lot are going for that platform play and having that contact center and unified communications together, integrating the front office with the back office. But I think it's the fight for increasing revenue to to improve shareholder value. I think this is the area that's going to hot up. Is more licensing, more integration of platforms. I'm still a little bit skeptical about Microsoft. I mean, they got all the moving parts at the moment. You can cobble together your own contact center. You can have voice-enabled queuing on Teams channels, but I'm still not sure whether or not they've got their business units aligned so that they can make this fly. It'll be an interesting one to watch. They must move in that direction, surely.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, excellent.
I'm surprised no one has bought 5.9 yet. That we seem to go every other month talking about 5.9 selling themselves. So let's see what happens next year. Nobody's made that prediction yet, but I'm not cutting you off. We're just about halfway through. Irwin, why don't you go next? Tell everybody what your big story was for this year, and then your predictions.
Sure. Hi, I'm Irwin Lazar, President and Principal Analyst with Metrigy. I would say the big story again is, not to keep beating on the generative AI area, but just to take a little bit of a different track. Definitely generative AI was the big topic. Every vendor pushed a generative AI story. I'd say the big area that we are, that I think sort of emerged this year is above and beyond the hype and the capabilities. It's trying to figure out ROI. There was a discussion earlier about, free versus charging for a movie you haven't seen. I think it was what Mark had mentioned. So I think that's the big topic right now, and the big development of this past year is what's the right business model from the vendor side for selling it? What's the right consumption model from the enterprise buyer for taking it on? We're finding that the companies are increasingly concerned over this as generative AI has come out over this last year around security of LLMs, around data that's being shared into an LLM, around the content that's being created by the generative AI platform, things like meeting summaries and notes and so on. And then creating this scenario where you might now have islands of generative AI. So I'm in my note-taking app and it's got a Gen AI assistant that's summarizing my notes, and I've got another one in my chat app and another one in my meeting app. And how do have I made things more difficult, more complicated versus trying to, provide some value in simplifying collaboration? I think that's kind of the big story of this past year.
Okay, and prediction?
Yeah, I think you'll see in three things that I think are really going to drive the market going next year. One is continuing to figure out, is there a use case? Are people willing to spend money on AI? Can the vendors who are giving it away continue to give it away? I think you're going to see a development of tiered pricing models. I think as people start to use the technology more, it becomes very difficult for companies who are giving it away now to continue to do so. And I think you're going to see attacks. I think you're going to see attacks and efforts to poison LLMs. You're going to see data that leaks out that shouldn't. I think that'll probably be at least a couple of significant incidents over the next year, unfortunately.
So AI is going to continue to be the big story next year, in your opinion, with various quirks and twists that are taking place. Any thoughts on that? Agree, disagree? Shout it out.
I think everyone has to agree on that. What I question is the real value. I've been using the meeting summaries. I'm not going to say which vendor. And it takes me more time going over the meeting summary and actually correcting it and, making it align with my notes. And it's like, this really isn't worth it. It's much easier for me to just take my own notes because I'm just not getting the value from it. So I think individuals and organizations have to figure out, is this really making me more productive? Is this saving me time? Or is it just another tool that I'm adding on to my collection of tools?
Or Blair, I was wondering, if you have to prove a negative, do you have to prove that you're not using AI? How do you do that now, right? If perfecting your language and your writing and whatever your image is a part of what society is like pushing us towards, then you have to prove that you're not actually using the technologies that are in your hands. It's self-defeating, right? So what do I have to be more imperfect in order to be human? It's going to be a vicious circle. So forget about how productive you are. It's just how society is going to accept the concept that you could be artificial, or a portion of you could be artificial or unreal. And we're going to allow, just like with driving cars, our automated cars, we're going to have to allow for this time for it to come to accommodations in society to allow for this sort of parallel universe of perfection.
Well, and how many of us are using AI generated or fake backgrounds right now?
The interesting thing with Irwin pointing out that it's islands is everybody's experience of AI may be different because everybody's using a different entry point toward it. Some people may be using the UC summaries, the meeting summaries. Some people may be going to Bard or to ChatGPT, which is, dated. It's X years old. Some people may be using the paid version. We were all going to get different experiences because we all have a different entry point. So yeah.
I had a great conversation with an engineer at HP a couple of weeks ago, one of the fellows there, and it was really around the idea of when do we learn to trust AI, and do we, we have this assumption that, well, if generative AI is spitting it out to us, it must know what truth is. But what is truth, and how do you, like there was a lot of stories when Twitter, Elon Musk announced Grok based on mining data off of Twitter. Well, are we going to believe that or trust any of that? And I think the trust issues is certainly going to be a big one next year, and what is truth? What are we, who's the arbiter of deciding whether or not the AI engine is giving us correct data?
That's a real concern. I mean, I remember reading several months ago that whether it was a law assistant or someone was basically using generative AI for research purposes, and it was fabricating cases to make its point, like, Lazar versus Pleasant, but there was no such case, but it was citing this case as though it was real.
but he actually did ask the AI, are these real? And the AI came back and said yes, even though it wasn't.
Yep. So you're not going to lose your job to AI. You're going to lose your job to somebody who knows AI better than you do. That's the other expression that's going on. Mark, you're up. Mark Peterson, tell everybody who you are, what you do, and go into your big story of the year.
Oh, okay. I'm Mark Peterson. I lead the audiovisual practice at Shen Milsman Wilkie, and we are a technology consulting firm and pure consulting firm. And we help customers sort of navigate and select and implement technologies, including unified collaboration, video conferencing, and multimedia video conferencing, security, IT, acoustics. And I also do analysis of and trends in the industry as well. Since we went into the AI space already, I'm going to choose a different one on my list because, someone's going to pick these, but I'm going to go back to Zoom. And I think we got John on the call. I hope it's okay to say this. I thought the story of the year that was a pivotal moment when Zoom announced the return of the employees, saying that they need to have, in order to build collaborative products, that they for new ways of working, employees need to experience the pain firsthand. And I was going, this was a catalyst moment, in my opinion, because first of all, I don't think it needed to be coming from, they could have waited a year. It would have made more sense in 2024 than still in 2023. You've seen a tsunami of Microsoft Teams implementation. It just is stunning. I was just on a call with Logitech on what they're selling their appliance for and what products. It's significant. Sorry, John, but it also is indicating, I think, a transition of what we're going to see in the space for the next year. So that's my my first one, and then my prediction, David, is that the race to the bottom that we've seen with video bars over the last year and other products is going to shift into the year of sustainability. I'm hearing more companies, and I'm super on board with the messaging and importance of creating products that are sustainable. And the problem is we don't have clear definitions of what those are. We don't have metrics to be able to do them. But because the race to the bottom is a price thing, this is another opportunity for manufacturers to create a value proposition that aligns with customer demand. And when I'm talking with architects and with customers, they are looking for an association and a branding and a message that aligns with their mission. So I believe it's going to be the year of sustainability. The following year is going to be the year of circularity, which, if you don't know that one, that's going to be a very hot term in a while. I mean, it's going to make sense, I think, in a while, but it's harder to get around. So I hope we have in our industry an opportunity as leaders in this space to start to define what sustainability means and share the importance of that, so that we can support manufacturers and products that are doing that.
Well, Mark, I'll share with you that the IMCCA had begun a conversation with TCO, who's one of the global sustainability organizations, to try and create a sustainability metric for video conferencing specifically. And there was a lot of interest on both sides, and we may still do it. Ken Scatoro, who many of you know is with Yorktel, it was given the new title of Chief Sustainability Officer, and we were going to try and move forward to get into their next generation. The reality is, and I hate to say this, that all the tech layoffs, including mine, kind of put a kibosh on that. situation. All the people that were working on trying to create sustainability at the various organizations we were talking to are no longer working at those various organizations. So I think we are in a bit of a nosedive around what's going on in technology companies and Wall Street. I think it's a bad situation where companies that are not just profitable, but wildly profitable, exceedingly profitable in the millions and billions are talking about cutting heads because it pleases Wall Street and the stock market numbers go up. I think we're going to have to get out of that mode and start talking about doing things for the good of mankind again in order for that sustainability story to be important.
Wasn't David, just remind me, because obviously I'm over the water here, but wasn't the SEC looking at ESG regulations and looking at how climate emissions should be part of SEC filings?
ESG and DEI have been very debated over the last couple of months right now in the business sectors. There are a lot of people that have been talking about we shouldn't be going down that route. We should be letting capitalists be capitalists. I didn't know. I don't know of an SEC rule. Some of you other guys might, but I know that it's been hotly debated. Izzy, you're up next. Tell everybody who you are, what you do, and let's get your big story of the year.
Awesome. My name is Izzy Demara. I'm the marketing manager at RoomReady. RoomReady is an audiovisual integration company, and we specialize in video conferencing spaces for large companies. So one of the big things that I have seen this year in our world is, I know in late 2022, Cisco announced that they would be, releasing their devices to be Microsoft Teams certified. And now we're seeing some of those devices in the market. And I think seeing two big players in Cisco and Microsoft kind of team up instead of, stay separate, it was pretty big. And I think that kind of ties into the interoperability and themes that we've seen across the collaboration and, communications world. So that's my hot take on the, biggest thing I've seen so far in 2023. And for 2024, I think that this is going to be the year that companies stop waffling back and forth between return to office, hybrid. I think companies are kind of start to embrace the hybrid. I know hybrid work, return to office, these are all, terms that Neil said are in the sin bin, and they certainly are. But I think we're going to see a lot of companies this year start to reduce their real estate footprints and invest in, offices that, are magnets for their employees, that's going to attract people to want to come in, but also offer that flexibility for employees to work remote. I think employee experience is going to be huge for 2024. And I think we're going to see a lot of companies really embrace collaboration. And I think all of the new AI and developments, meeting equity again in the sin bin. But I think those are things that are really going to take center stage for us in 2024.
Good point. Anybody have thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. This is kind of goes back to my, I don't like the word return, right? Because we need to be building offices for, or spaces, really. I don't even like the word offices. Really, it's spaces for people to come together to do productive work. And also it will probably require us even more so. I know some people have already started to do this, but to really think about, when do I need to have a meeting versus when do I need to send a chat versus when is this a channel versus now we have lots of different ways that we can communicate information, and some of it needs to be asynchronous and some of it doesn't. Some of it needs discussion. But to be fair, I think not too many people are really mindfully thinking, is this the best way to communicate this message? Because if they are thinking that, I'm not seeing that. So I think that people really need to take a step back and, really, if you were to look at your calendar and reevaluate what on there that's meetings, how often should they really happen? Should they happen at all? Do we have the right attendees here? That really starts to help drive the direction of, when we are in an office for a meeting, what's actually being accomplished. There's just a lot there that, we need to revisit, and we have different tools than we used to have, right? 10 years ago, we didn't have all these collaboration tools in the way that we do today. So we did meetings because it was the only way. But now that's not the case. So
as you're talking there, Amelia, I think the industry has over-rotated on meetings, and I'm very encouraged by Zoom Docs, by Microsoft Loop, by Notion, and others that allow you to work across time zone in a distributed fashion asynchronously. So maybe I should have had a prediction that those sorts of tools will be used more, and hopefully we can do away with meaningless meetings, because my word, we could get back to some productive time if we limited or thought carefully about the meetings that we're involved in.
Well, does anybody else struggle like I do with how you communicate with various different people? I mean, I look at the screen now, I'm looking at, 10, 11, 12 people at one time, and I communicate with you guys on WhatsApp, on Zoom chat, on Microsoft Teams, via email. Tim, you and I chat on Messenger, Facebook Messenger sometimes. It's very difficult to kind of remember what the old message was, where it came from, and how do you reply to it. It's something that really needs to be brought together that hasn't.
It's notification overload. Yeah, we deal with that. You name it, we're using it. And again, probably a little bit unusual compared to companies that are standardized on, one platform. But what happens is if companies don't support B2B, B2C type connectivity, people go out and find their way. Here in the US, there were a number of fines over the last year from the Security Exchange Commission in the billions of dollars for financial advisors that were using WhatsApp to share guidance information with their clients and doing things outside of compliance requirements. So yeah, big issue.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, David Maldow, you've been sitting in the background with Santa in front of your screen the whole time. Tell us how you're doing that for a second. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Well, before I introduce myself, really quick, we were talking about sustainability before, so I have to give a shout out. There's an organization in our space called SAVE at SaveAV, SAVEAV.org. And their tagline is sustainability in AV. That's what they're about. They have a certification program for vendors. We should be supporting them. Our good friend Kelly Perkins is heavily involved. You can reach out to her for more information, and they're going to be presenting at ISE. About myself, my name is David Maldow. I'm the founder and CEO of Let's Do Video. I've been covering business communications for 100 million years. And I love creating content. I love writing. I love making videos. You could see some of my content and learn more about me at letsdovideo.com. Now, my prediction's not going to be about AI. And I say that first as an excuse because my big takeaway is from last year is about AI. So I have to have some AI. And I said this in another podcast. I feel silly saying it again, but I just can't get over it. And I'm a little, I disagree with you, Dave, on the chat GPT and everything. I think it is a big deal. I think it's a big game changer. It's changing the way I do some things. And I think a potential, it's not going to get, I agree with you. It's going to take longer than people think to get all the way there. But I think the potential of where it's going to be in the next few years is a big deal. And, some people are saying like the biggest thing since, we went to the moon or the printing press, it might be on that kind of level. So I think that the company that's getting us there, they must be these wise, genius, incredible scientists that we can trust with the future of humanity. And they're lunatics. That debacle they had, it was crazy. They're crazy people. They're like my crazy family. I can't, and they're the ones that are coming up with this technology. So my big takeaway from last year is maybe not to take everything so seriously. Like no one knows what they're doing. It's all just crazy. Just go along for the ride and try to have some fun. But my prediction is it's a little more serious. I was kind of joking around, and this is something that I might want to have another more in-depth conversation with John about, because this is John's world. And to take it back a step, when I first got into this industry, if you wanted to have a meeting room video, there were no Zoom rooms yet. You got a Tandberg or Polycom, maybe a Radvision or a Life Size, maybe 4 companies that you really cared about, and that was it. And even when we first had Zoom rooms and Teams, it was kind of the today's version of those companies. They weren't didn't have the same names. They didn't sold about whatever. But today's version of those companies and 2 or 3 more, they were the ones making Zoom rooms. They were the ones making Teams rooms. So it was the same kind of universe when we thought of the hardware situation in meeting rooms. And then all of a sudden at Infocom and Enterprise Connect and all these shows, I'm seeing video bars everywhere. And yes, of course, the video bars from the people that have been doing this forever, they're better. They're better quality, better experience. They have some more features, but the generic video bars that you see in all the booths, they're not garbage. They're just not. You think they would be. That's the way the world used to be. The generic webcams are, oh my God. But they're pretty good. And what really threw me was I went to CEDIA, which is a residential technology event. Thanks to David Danto. Thank you very much. But that was turned out to be a big thing this year for me. But I'm going to all these booths and all these companies say, we've been making residential technology for 50 years. We do speakers, we do sound bars, we do this and that. And if you go to the other side of our booth, we have commercial stuff now, and we have video bars for meeting room systems that work with Zoom. And I'm like, you guys have meeting room? Everyone has them. So it makes me concerned for our good friends at the old, 3 or 4 companies that have been doing this stuff. If you walk into meeting rooms anywhere in the world, the brands that you see there, it's going to get really hard for them. Maybe I'm misreading them, and maybe it's like, no, everyone's going to still buy those 3 or 4 companies. All these other companies, I think they wouldn't have them at the booths if they weren't selling them. I think all these companies are selling these video bars. I think things just are about to get really hard for the traditional hardware market.
So is that your prediction, is the commoditization of the video hardware supply industry? I mean, I shouldn't really be the one to comment about companies commoditizing and getting rid of their brain power. That's really not something I should talk about. I don't know if anybody else agrees with that
Well,
comment.
you see more and more happening on the software side, right? So, the more that happens, the more that's developed, then the less that's required of the hardware. You always need some sort of hardware, right? Because a software can't be a camera. A software can't take that analog input in, right? Something has to do that. But the more that the software is able to handle, then the less complex that interface device needs to be. And that's why you see the entry being easier, right, for more and more companies to get into that. So, and I don't think that's going to change. I don't think the software development's going to stall. If anything, that's going to accelerate, if you ask me. But we've got other people here too, like John, who can talk more of that probably. And when you get
it's a good point, Amelia, and a great topic, David. Yes, there are lots and lots of options, but being more software focused these days, the ability to have that consistent user interface across different, hardware partner devices, I think really helps, because there are new products coming to market very quickly. And yeah, as we've mentioned, I mean, these are not devices that are low quality. I mean, they wouldn't be there if they weren't delivering a good experience. So I think I say it to clients of ours all the time that a lot of options is good, because in a lot of different competing hardware vendors is a good thing for customers, because they have to race each other on innovation, but also they have to compete on price. In both of those scenarios benefit, right? Of course, you got to make sure that you're investing in something that is going to meet your need. For enterprise organizations, does it check all those boxes to be able to scale and manage, and or security concerns up to par and whatnot. But it is it's been pretty remarkable to see how many, especially this year alone, how many more video bars have come to market, and and one more impressive than the last. I mean, it really has been interesting to watch.
We got CES coming up in a couple of weeks from now, and on our CES preview show, Tim Albright and I were talking to their head of research, Steve Koenig, and we all kind of come to the conclusion that innovation is going to be pushed down to smaller new companies. The larger companies that have been in the space for the longest time, and this is all spaces, but certainly we're talking about UC and video collaboration as well. The larger companies are stalling innovation. They're commoditizing. The next set of innovations to come on the market are going to come from places that we're not looking at right now. The smaller companies that are more nimble, that are more able to do it. It's going to be a very...
I also wonder if, David, if we're going to see more bring your own meetings. Because if you imagine, we get invited to Zoom calls, WebEx calls, Teams calls, anybody's call. And I think we're going to see more bring your own meeting, which means that there has to be some sort of neutral system there to be able to take use of the cameras and the speakers in the room and the mics in the room. I have a feeling we're going to see a lot more people think very carefully about whether or not they put a lot of money into a specific vendor's room system.
Yeah, Tim, in my research, the tier 1 markets, the US, UK, Germany have been really shifting to more appliance based, but the tier 2 areas are all BYOD. So you're seeing a little dichotomy there. I'm sorry, David.
Oh, I was saying to follow up on what Tim was saying about the idea of bring your own meeting, being able to just use whatever and still use the equipment in the meeting room. I just had a conversation with Neil about that. So check out the Let's Do Video YouTube channel in a few days, and that'll be live. I don't want to promote too much, but we did have a conversation about that being a trend in the industry.
Yeah, these video bars are the windshield wipers on the bus, right? The environment has created that opportunity so they can they don't have to perform the same level. They could just be autonomous vehicles, plug them onto whatever is actually the intelligent engine behind it, and away you go. So that's why I think you're seeing, David, more of that commoditization, because they can have profit. I would say that if we look back a little bit, companies like Logitech, they were going from 8,000 a quarter cameras to 970,000 video cameras in a quarter. It was insane. And we're seeing throttle back of that. But the strategy now is these companies make fewer products at a higher price point and make margin.
Well, a lot of companies, Mark, saw that high point during the pandemic, and their business people said, wow, that's our new high point. Let's set our bar there. And they're not hitting those numbers, and they're struggling with it. So,
and why would you pull out your bar, right? You're not going to throw this stuff away tomorrow. You're going to keep it as long as you can. So your ability to measure adoption is really skewed by where you are in your product life cycle.
And the last point on that is I just bought my wife's car some new windshield wipers at Costco for about $7.99 each. So the commoditization of the windshield wiper on the bus is just going to continue. Dan Ferrisi. Dan, tell everybody who you are, what you do, and let's hear your big story of last year.
Sure. My name is Dan Ferrisi. I'm Group Editor, Commercial and Security with Emerald. Emerald produces shows like CEDIA Expo and Commercial Integrator Expo, and I have oversight over Commercial Integrator, the publication, and security sales and integration. So obviously, you keep hearing the name integration. That's kind of where my world is. We exist to help integrators run their businesses better. People read CI so they can learn how to optimize their integration operations. Same with security sales and integration. So naturally, that's kind of the lens through which I look at this question. For me, the biggest story, for integrators, the biggest story of 2023 was the talent shortage, the labor shortage for people in our industry. When we do our own surveys and we ask them, what is the biggest thing encumbering or hindering your business? They don't say it's inflation. They don't say it's interest rates. They don't say it's supply chain, component availability. They say we don't have enough qualified candidates to fill our technician roles. It's inhibiting our ability to burn through our backlog and make sure that we can execute on the projects that we're trying to execute on. And I think that is the biggest story for integrators of 2023, that is far and away the biggest challenge encumbering their businesses. I think my hopeful prediction, is that we're going to see a significant improvement in having a mindful pipeline into our industry that will help nurture some of those qualified candidates. I'm really impressed with what George Chaco and Rich Miller are doing at Pace University. They have an AV minor right now. They're going to be working over the next couple of years to do an AV major. I think that's something that could really spill out and be a template for lots of other universities and institutes of higher learning. I will also say some vendors like Crestron, for example, are trying to reach out and get their content onto college campuses. I know Crestron is working with Sheffield Institute, Lincoln Technical Institute, some others, to try to get their content, and not just programming and training, but actually design, installation, a real curriculum into some of these institutions. And I think if we can execute on that collectively as an industry and have a more mindful path into our industry, as opposed to people falling into it through tangential industries or this happened or that happened, all of us would benefit from that, as opposed to just hoping to luck into having the next superstars among us.
Any thoughts from anyone?
I'm waiting for the 50 under 50 because I'm too old for the 40 under 40. So every year I see all these young people and I'm like, well, come on, I need the 50 under 50.
Well, we'll give a shout out to Nancy, who came up with the idea of the Living Legends. So we've got Legends of AV being done, and maybe someday, if you work hard, you could be one of those legends.
One day I could, I'll try my best.
I'll mention it to the other legends and see if we're interested in having you join the club.
Yeah.
And thanks for that shout out, David. I think we're on the cusp of hitting 40, and we've just scratched the surface. So I'm looking forward to getting 100 or more, and I'm thrilled that this series has taken off the way that it has.
Absolutely, we recognize everyone. All right, John, I'm sorry that you're the last, but certainly not least. Why don't you introduce yourself and give everybody your big story of the year and your predictions?
Sure, sounds good, David. Thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm John Stearns here. I lead our international Zoom rooms and spaces business at Zoom. I've been in the video conferencing industry coming up on about 19 years, both the vendor, the integrator side. A good chunk of that was in and around the Tandberg, Cisco, Acano ecosystem, but been over at Zoom the last 3 or 4 years now, and honored to be included in this esteemed group. I don't know how I crashed this party, but I appreciate you guys allowing me to stay. So, thank you for that. And a quick shout out to Dan and for some of those on this call that actually did nominate me for the 40 under 40 this year. So I really appreciate that. My last year of eligibility, so I squeezed it in right before I age out. So I really appreciate that. In terms of top story for the year, of course, buzzword was AI. It's like you hear it, whatever the new buzzword is at Enterprise Connect every year, you just got to hear it over and over and over. But I do think that it is, a pretty substantial topic that, for good reason, is top of mind and being discussed all over the place. I do agree with, I think it was Tim and Irwin that talked about the story around that is, whether or not this is going to be something that's going to be a standalone license with its associated premium pricing, or are we going to see more and more of this included as table stakes into existing products, right? I think some are drawing a line in the sand on that. So that's going to be interesting to see, who stays on which side and, and where that industry ends up, just in general with that mindset. Last top story here, I did have an opportunity. I love going out to visit customers, and I did have an opportunity to visit with a financial customer in the Boston area, and checked out their boardroom, which ended up winning an award for the best meeting room project of the year. So shout out to Amelia and the AVI SPL team. One of the best boardrooms I've ever seen. Just a remarkable project there. So that was really cool to me. In terms of predictions, of course, there's lots of predictions associated with AI. And I do think what we'll see this year is whether or not this is going to, be practical and usable, right? There's all sorts of capabilities. I think everyone is in an arms race to talk about what they can do right now. But if that isn't actually resulting in productivity improvements, then I don't know how much people are going to use this. So I think we're going to start to see this really categorized and focused around usability. So I think that's a big one there. The other topic that came up, and I think Izzy talked about it, I think David mentioned it, and I think a bunch of people chimed in here, is just interoperability. We have to move forward as an industry in 2024. I feel like we've stalled a little bit there. We're seeing progress in certain areas, but this is a topic I've been passionate about for quite some time. And I think certain experiences are not moving along as quick as they need to, right? And end users and customers and CIOs are saying, it's tough to answer when they say, hey, I have my phone, I can load up 5 different meeting apps. I've got 5 different meeting apps loaded up on my laptop. So why can I join from these devices, but from rooms, it's not as easy, right? And we have to have an answer for that moving into next year, because the direct guest joins and the web client experiences, again, are just not delivering enough of the native features. So I really think that's going to start to come to a head this year. And I think that there'll be, a lot of pressure to start delivering on more native experiences. We have to get there, right? We can't be here a year later, from now saying that we still have this watered down interop experience going from one room system to a different platform. This is the modern world. Everyone uses multiple meeting platforms internally. They have to join externally. So I do think that this is going to be a big prediction that I think it's going to be one of the biggest years in terms of interop improvement in quite some time.
John, you've heard me say before that 100 years from now, we're all going to be in self-driving cars and robots will be performing surgery in hospitals, and we'll still be arguing about interoperability. Yeah. It's because it's not a technical problem, it's a business problem. If I haven't said it before, because I've been employed by companies that don't want to say it, I'll say it point blank out right now. Device interoperability exists in everyone's labs. The reason why you don't have it on the product is because the platform manufacturers don't want to enable it. They want to keep you in their walled garden. So, maybe we'll get past that business problem and have it out there, and the things in the labs will come out, but only if end users demand it. And as you guys have all pointed out, there are going to be so many video bars out there and so many devices, and it's so commoditized, somebody's going to come out with it. And the first one or two or three will probably be yelled at by the platforms. But if it's a flood and people buy them, the platforms will have to give in, and it'll be like your mobile phone.
Green bubbles and blue bubbles, right?
Exactly.
Right. You're going to be you're going to have different experience based on, you know, whether or not you have an authorized client with a room license on the device, or whether you're just going in through a, you know, web browser type interface.
Yep.
It might be just anecdotal, but I hear story after story from end users about meeting rooms that have a Zoom room system, and a Teams room system. Two separate cameras, two separate meeting boxes. And every time I hear one of the stories, I feel like we've failed as an industry.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm thinking that they're
Not
going to look
okay.
at what product's going to give them the most productivity with this AI change, and the more it gets able to make money for the company, and they'll double down on that. And I think what's missing, David, in this space, and just to mention this, when you've typed into a chat conversation, you have to use your keyboard. There's no little microphone, little button. I can't talk, and then I can't share. Why don't, once we get to a point where we can bring that intelligence into the meeting and iterate off of a conversation with an intelligent language model, that's, I think, where it's going to be really impactful. No one's made it yet, but as soon as we can start to increase, ask the questions into the group, everyone hears the answer, and then everyone can respond. They're starting to do that into the collaboration boards, so you can shuffle the deck of what people were adding and contributing to to TAC boards. But that's, I think, going to be really important for our industry. And I think that's going to pave the way, not interoperability, but business productivity based upon the artificial intelligence that's inserted into the product.
Okay, we've got about 5 minutes left of our time here. Was there any topic that should have been brought up? Anything we forgot to talk about? Anyone have anything they want to add?
Did we mention generative AI? I think we did once.
Well, so we talked about Microsoft Copilot, but I think the fact is that everybody has a Copilot, and they call it different things. Copilot kind of became, the generic, it is a generic name, although Microsoft is using a lot, and some of us associated with Microsoft, but, Salesforce Einstein Copilot, NICE, and, the contact center side, they've got like 3 different Copilots. So every vendor has their own Copilot now, or assistant, companions, they all have different names. But I think this really was the year of the Copilot. And I think next year we're going to see the battle of the Copilots to really see which one provides, the bang for the buck, which one figures out the pricing, which we talked about. But, every vendor is going to have their own Copilot, and it's going to be very confusing, but, hopefully it'll add some value.
I hope you'll also see the era of the APIs that allow data exchange between Copilots. So, Zoom, for example, and Microsoft being able to share data based with each other. I'm hoping you'll see that, but, probably as likely as what we were just talking about with respect to video interoperability.
I'll tell you what my biggest disappointment of this year has been, and that's the fact that Microsoft Places didn't come out with their desk room reservation system, and pretty much most other vendors did. Because if there was ever any company that could have really maximized and sort of improved on the return to the office, hybrid work, or whatever you want to call it, the normal way of working, it should have been Microsoft. And it was a big miss for me. And I'm very disappointed that it didn't come out. And they were focusing on things like Maybelline filters and funky backgrounds and avatars and things like that. Things that are nice to play with, but things that haven't really got much business value.
I'm seeing somebody develop a Leonardo DiCaprio "I'm a co-pilot" meme that we're going to be seeing a lot of from his movie Catch Me If You Can. That's really cool. All right, so please, everybody, stay under 30 seconds. We're going to go in backwards order. Give your friends, your family, your industry some holiday greetings. Under 30 seconds. John, start with you.
Yeah, so I just want to thank all of you for contributing all the content throughout the year. This really makes an exciting industry. Our partners, our customers, our families. It's really important for us to unplug, spend time with our families, and think about what matters this time of year. And so I hope everyone has great holidays. Take some time away and come back refreshed for a fun 2024. And thanks again for having me.
Thank you, Dan. Dan?
Yeah, warmest wishes for a joyous holiday season. All the best for a prosperous, successful, healthy new year. Hopefully it's a good year for all of us collectively as an industry, for us as a society, and all my best wishes.
Thank you, Dan. David?
First, I forgot to mention, reminded myself looking at Blair. I've also joined the BC Strategies group, so I wanted to thank the BC Strategies group for having me as a member. It's an awesome group, and just thank you to everyone that I've worked with, everyone that I saw in person at these events. I hate traveling, so when I go to these events and you're all so nice to me, it's like, okay, it's worth flying out for you. And obviously all my clients, partners, everyone in the industry, have a great holiday season, and let's have some fun next year.
Absolutely. Izzy, up to you.
I'd like to say happy holidays to all of my coworkers at Room Ready. I hope you guys are enjoying your time off and unplugging. Hopefully you're watching this not on Christmas Day and you're spending some time with your family. I think 2023 has been an awesome year for me in the industry. And, you know, I'm still newer to AV, but I think I appreciate all of you for embracing me, and shout out to Dan and the commercial integrator team for, you know, nominating myself and John on the 40 under 40. And I'm excited to see what happens in 2024.
Thank you, Izzy. Mark?
Well, I want to thank everyone in the industry for all of their support this year. Rave gave us Best Company of the Year, and that was on Viewers' Choice. So it's all of you that's made that possible. But I really want to shout out to David and wish him the very best year. When we look at I think you are the model of the story of what's transpired, even though we didn't really get into the elephant in the room. It's a big deal, and I'm really wishing you the best next year, and we're looking forward to following your story and supporting you.
Thank you, Mark. I really appreciate that. Irwin?
Yeah, best wishes for a happy and healthy holiday season, New Year's to everybody. David, thank you for everything you've done to pull the community together and take us a step forward this past year and beyond. Looking forward to next year. It's going to be an interesting year for a lot of the technology areas we talked about, as well as the global environment we all live in right now. So wish everyone the best as we move into 2024.
Thank you. Blair?
I just want to say thank you to all my colleagues, vendors, the vendor community, the analyst community, just to everybody. And being the Beatle freak I am, I have to quote Ringo and just say peace and love.
Peace and love from Ringo. Neil?
I'm not very good at profound statements, so I'll just say thank you, Merry Christmas. Thank you for all the support. I have no idea what I'm doing on this social media business. I just spam stuff against the wall and hope that stuff sticks. So thank you for supporting me. Let's be friends. I'm at ISE, Infocom, Enterprise Connect, all those things, and come say hi and drink and eat well over Christmas. Love you, David.
Thank you, Neil. Appreciate it. Amelia?
Yeah, well, first of all, David, I just wanted to thank you for getting this group together. I also feel like I've crashed a party of a lot of great minds here, so it's great to meet you guys. I'm actually just counted. I saw 6 of you this year live, so maybe I'll get to see the other ones that I didn't get to see in 2024. But this industry is fun, and I love that I can work doing something that's actually fun, which just makes a huge difference, right? So hopefully everybody has a chance to spend some time decompressing, reflecting on everything that happened this year, even, the good things and the bad things, because we can always learn from the bad things. So that's the only way we actually learn. And if we can take that time to, really soak it in and see how we move forward, not return, we can all have a really great 2024 and beyond. So thank you.
Thank you, Amelia. Tim?
Yep. Thanks to my fellow analysts, vendors, clients, my team for the outstanding work that they've done, and the industry in general. It's been a great year. I hope the next year brings everyone health, happiness, and peace.
Thank you very much. And my closeout for the year, I started tracking my career when I had my first internship at AT&T Corporate Television in 1978, which means in September of this year, I put it at 45 years. And I'm still going strong, and I appreciate it. I have parted ways with the company that I worked for the last 5 years. It was obviously their decision and not mine. But I have to tell you, there's a little bit of a Zuzu's pedals in my pocket, and It's a Wonderful Life story being written with how many people reached out to me. And hopefully I'll have some good news for everybody in the very near term. Until I have the closing chapter of that story, I'm not going to tell it, but I'm going to say thank you, everyone, for watching these webcasts, for staying with us, for the folks at the IMCCA and AV Nation TV, for continuing to give a voice to this, because there is an important part about keeping our community voice together. Thanks very much. Enjoy the holidays, and we'll see you either just before or just after CES. Take care.
Thanks all.